Welcome everyone to the 2025 Judicial Candidate Forum. Appreciate all the candidates that could join us tonight. I'm John Williams, representing Cincinnati Bar Association. We've done this event for at least probably the last 15 years. Very happy that the various candidates could join us. We have, and I don't want to mess up names, so I'm going to get it. Candidate Athena Stefano, running in District 5. We have currently sitting Judge Berkowitz, running in District 4. We also have Danielle Culliver, running in District 4. And we also have candidate Bernard Mundy, running in District 3. Thanks to all of you for coming out. Most people understand municipal court to be people's court. That's how I always viewed it. Worked in people's court for probably the first 4 years of my career as prosecutor. And that's what most people come into contact with, because that's where you run into people that run into smaller criminal issues, but nevertheless criminal issues, and also smaller civil claims under $15,000. And that's the jurisdiction of municipal court. And that's where most citizens of this community, if they're in court, find themselves going through that court process. So we thank the candidates. Every odd year, municipal court judges run for election. Some run unopposed, some run opposed. Tonight, we have two candidates who are running, well, two districts that are opposed, and that would be District 4, and that's with Judge Berkowitz and candidate Culliver. And also, candidate Mundy is running in District 3, and he's unopposed. Candidate Stefano is running in District 5, and she does have an opponent, and her opponent is candidate Betsy Sunderman, who cannot join us tonight. So we're going to start off with just some basic questions. The purpose of the forum is to educate the community and to also have the candidates promote themselves. That's what this is about. Got to get out there. I know it's been a long road. I know a lot of you are looking forward to November. We're going to start out with also thanking our co-sponsors, the Bourbon League and the NAACP. I'm going to start out with a couple of questions from them. Also, I forgot to mention the BLAC submitted some question. That's the Black Lawyers Association of Cincinnati. Questions. What challenges do you face in balancing the needs of the community with the law? And I'm going to go on a volunteer basis. Who would like to take that question first? Well, that's not really working. Okay, there you go. All right. Good question. Yeah. Go ahead. All right. What challenges do you face in balancing the needs of the community with the law?
Well, first, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Athena Stefano, and I'm running for Municipal Court District 5. Just a little bit of background about me. I am currently working at the clerk's office as the chief of court operations, but prior to that, I was a public defender for about 7 years. And I think in answering that question, I think what I will say is the law is paramount. The law needs to be applied equally. And that also stems from fairness is very important. And if a judge is, again, applying the law equally and being fair in their rulings, and what that means to me is not taking any special favor on anyone or favoritism on anyone based on their background, their socioeconomic status, how much money they make. Any sort of factors like that should not be in the equation in terms of making those determinations. Again, it's applying the law to the facts of each individual case. And that, I believe, would be the most important benefit. And that's the way that we can get to a court that is the fairest court we can.
All right. Judge Berkowitz, also, you can give them each like an extra 30 seconds, just to introduce themselves.
Sure. First of all, I'd also like to thank our hosts at UC Law School, also the Cincinnati Bar Association, the other sponsors of this event. My name is Josh Berkowitz. I've had the honor of serving as a municipal court judge in this position now for 10 years. 2 years ago, I was selected by my colleagues to serve as the court's administrative and presiding judge, which is a really neat honor. You know, municipal court is a wonderful, wonderful place to serve. We are dealing with the broadest cross-section of the public coming to court. It's a fascinating place, never dull, very high volume. I'm proud of my record of service in that time as a judge who always follows the law, who treats everyone fairly, and who works hard to try to keep our community safe by holding dangerous criminals accountable and by delivering justice for victims. Each case is unique. Each person who comes before the court is unique and deserves equal justice under the law. That's what we're sworn. That's the oath that we take as judges. And I'm proud of my record and of service as your judge in delivering that.
And as for the challenges faced by in balancing the needs of the community with the law, do you want to address that question more specifically?
Sure. You apply the law to the people before the court. It's as simple as that. You're applying the law equally to the people who are involved in the case, defendant, victim in a criminal case, the state, defense, plaintiff in the defense in a civil case. And you have to confine yourself to the law and the evidence and the individuals who are involved in that case. It's something that you have to work at and focus at, and you confine your analysis to the facts and the evidence and the law that applies to each case.
Thank you. And in all fairness, I'm going to go back to Ms. Stefano, candidate Stefano, and give her an extra minute to introduce more of herself.
Oh.
I didn't do that. I apologize.
Thank you, I appreciate
No
that.
problem.
So again, I would like to kind of also reiterate what Judge Berkowitz said. Thank you so much for having me here. It's really important, I believe, for everyone to know who the candidates are, have the candidates be able to answer questions about really important matters happening down at the courthouse. The other thing I'm really proud of is the fact that I am a graduate of this law school, and it is great to be back. My alma mater also was graduate of this business school, which we actually are sitting in the old business school. So I'm very happy. I'm a proud lifelong Cincinnatian, and I do take it very seriously that I need to serve the community that has helped me get to this point. And I believe, again, in terms of, we talked about challenges a little bit. I think the challenges can be that the perception of court and the perception of the municipal court specifically. And I believe that it's really important for the court to educate the public on processes. It's important for the court to educate those who aren't attorneys and to understand the court process. A lot of what I do on a daily basis is frankly educate both attorneys and non-attorneys on the avenues that they can take in terms of where to file a particular document, how our public records work, things of that nature. So I think there is a balance to that, but I think they're not mutually exclusive. I think, we can educate the community and provide great resources in terms of like easily navigable, court processes, being able to actually be able to go on the website and understand how to get to where those folks need to go in terms of getting their cases figured out. But again, also balancing that with making sure that the law is being applied equally and fairly.
All right. We're going to move to candidate Culliver. You can introduce yourself some, and also I'll restate the question if you need. Go ahead.
Thank you. So first of all, yes, my name is Danielle Colliver. And I do want to start by thanking UC College of Law, the Cincinnati Bar Association, NAACP, our intern for helping take care of the time this evening, as well as the Black Lawyers Association and NAACP, if I didn't already say that. So thank you so much for hosting this, and thank you for making sure that we are able to communicate effectively with voters and with the community to make sure that they know who they're voting for and what they're getting with their vote. So I started with my legal career, graduating from the University of Cincinnati College of Law. I will say we were not in this building yet. So I'm really excited actually to be here tonight and see this new building and what you've accomplished in that regard. But I started there, graduated from UC. I went on to work for the Ohio Justice and Policy Center. And I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with it, but they have done, I would say that that organization was instrumental in kind of defining my legal career and where I wanted to go with it. Because I ultimately learned that you can use your legal degree to help people. And frankly, I don't know that I was aware of that prior to going to law school. So I ran the Indigent Defense Clinic, which is a program for third-year law students to represent people in misdemeanor court. At the time, we were working with both UC and NKU. So I was an adjunct professor at both of the local law schools. I went on to become the training director at the Public Defender's Office here in Hamilton County, served in that capacity for a number of years. And then about 5 years ago, I went into private practice. So I primarily do criminal defense work. I do some civil work, but primarily criminal defense work. I continue to do a lot of pro bono work and appointed cases for people who cannot afford counsel, because I think that that is critically important. In terms of answering the question about the balancing the challenges, a couple of things come to mind, and I think, first of all, Ms. Stefano touched on it, but I think part of it is addressing the perception of what a non-attorney or what the public sees a court should be doing versus what the court is obligated by law to be doing. And frankly, I think that the courts could do a better job. And frankly, the legal profession in general could do a better job making sure that we are educating the public about what the role of the courts is. Am I finished already? That went a long time. That went quickly.
You can give her a minute, just to combine the two. Go ahead. You can give her another minute.
So addressing those perceptions, but the other thing I want to point out is investing in the technology necessary so that the court can be transparent to the community. I think just in terms of looking at the setting of bonds and seeing what they look like across the board, looking at sentencing and what that looks like across the board, and looking at recidivism so we can say, is what we're doing working or is it not working? So I think investing in that so we can be more transparent to the community is key. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Mundy, you can take a couple minutes to introduce yourself and then take a couple minutes to address the question.
I'm Bernard Mundy, and I'm running for Hamilton County Municipal Court in District 3. I've been practicing criminal defense law for nearly 31 years now, and I was drawn to the profession by my upbringing. I grew up in a working poor family in Avondale. I'm a proud product of Cincinnati Public Schools, where I graduated from Long Hills High School. I'm also a Miami University alum, as well as a UC College of Law alum. And I, like Ms. Colliver, attended the old building, which doesn't even exist anymore. In terms of balancing the needs of the community and the needs of the court, I think that if you're doing a good job in your courtroom and you're judging with independence, integrity, and impartiality, along with humility, you will serve the needs of the community. One of the things I learned from a mentor of mine, John Berlew, who's long gone now. He was a criminal defense lawyer in this jurisdiction. When he was a judge, he says, I judge conduct and not people. And I agree with that statement. I have devoted my practice to the indigent defense mostly over the course of my career because I grew up below the poverty line. My grandmother rescued my sister and I from foster care when I was 6 and my sister was 7. And here at UC, I became interested in criminal defense because Ken Applin, who no one will know, but Professor Applin was my criminal procedure professor, and he was my favorite law school professor. And when I took Criminal Pro 1 and 2 from him, I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to defend criminal cases, and it was a natural fit to pursue indigent defense because of my background. So I've defended citizens accused of everything from criminal trespass to aggravated murder and everything in between. I did spend a lot of time early in my career in municipal court. I'm well versed in criminal law, and the municipal court docket is primarily a criminal docket, even though there is civil work to be done. And so I'm looking forward because I'm unopposed to the opportunity to help. I think I can help, and I think I can bring a different perspective, more empathy, and a life experience that would lend itself to a different approach than we've ordinarily seen.
Thank you. As you all are aware, we do, the Bar Association puts on a judicial candidate poll, and some of the categories in the poll are administrative diligence, communication skills, community engagement, integrity, impartiality, objectivity, all one. Legal experience, professionalism, and temperament. I know where you all ranked or how you were rated, but tell me, candidate Stefano, what do you think your best attribute is?
Thank you for that question. I'm really proud of, frankly, my results. And I do think that they are reflective of how I have been as a practitioner, as a public defender, and now as a clerk of courts administrator. I really value the professionalism piece or the professionalism kind of aspect of the poll. I'm thankful because I was actually, the young lawyer section of the Cincinnati Bar Association actually did provide me with the Young Lawyer Professionalism Award last year. So I take that very seriously because ultimately, as lawyers, we need to uphold the utmost professionalism in the courtroom and outside the courtroom. I think it's very, very important, again, as for the profession, as well as it feeds into everything that you do. It feeds into whether or not you're, again, you're going to come to work every day wanting to make the court better, wanting to make the community better, wanting to make sure that you're making the best decisions in that courtroom for the victims involved in the case, the litigants involved in the case. And again, I take that very seriously. Again, I'm committed, and I believe that's been shown through my professionalism, to coming to work every day in that courtroom and how we can, again, improve things like efficiency in the courts, through technology, transparency, like I said, and also ultimately in the whole, as a whole, being fair to everyone that is coming through those doors and treating them with respect.
We'll move on to Judge Berkowitz.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for the question. Something that Bernie touched on that I think is really, really important is humility. I've always approached this job recognizing I do not have all of the answers. I don't know the people that are involved in the case, the defendant, the witnesses, the victim. I don't know everything about their lives. I'm not going to, even by the end of a trial or a sentencing. And you have to, I think, be humble enough to recognize, there's things that you can learn in the law. There's things that you're never going to know everything about all of the people in front of you on a particular case. I'm most proud of the fact, to answer the question more specifically, I think consistency is very, very important for a judge. I've been consistent in my record over 10 years of applying the law fairly, treating people fairly. I respect their time. I hope, when you make decisions for a living, it's an adversarial process, whether you're talking about criminal cases, civil cases, it means you got to make decisions. Somebody may be unhappy with the result. Maybe everybody will be unhappy with the result. That's the way it goes. I hope nonetheless that they walk away feeling that they had their day in court, that the judge heard them, gave them the opportunity to be heard, and that I explained the decisions that the court made in a way that they can understand so that they can move forward, whether they're happy with the result or disappointed by the result, so that they can move forward with some finality to that dispute that brought them to court, and so that they can move forward in a productive way.
Thank you. Candidate Culver.
Thank you very much. So I want to start by saying that I was incredibly pleased with my results on the Bar Association survey. And I do think that for me, it accurately reflects how I strive to conduct myself when I am doing my work, not only in the courthouse, but in my dealings with other litigants by phone or email or my clients, whoever it may be. I am most proud, I think, of the result with respect to professionalism, temperament, and I'm also going to factor in integrity in that piece of it, because I strive every day to, I represent a lot of people who have typically been marginalized by society. And so I strive every day to make them seem a person in the criminal justice system, because a lot of times they haven't had that opportunity. I also want to make sure every person is treated equally, that they're treated fairly, that it doesn't matter who their attorney is, that it doesn't matter the color of their skin, how much money they have. I think that is incredibly important. And I also think it is important to conduct yourself with honesty and integrity at all times. No matter what happens in the courtroom, I always thank the prosecutor. I always thank the other parties for just working with me, however the end result came out. The other thing I want to add is that with respect to judges in particular, they're kind of the face of the system when you're sitting in a courtroom. And so how the judge conducts herself or himself on the bench, I think really reflects on the people who are sitting in the courtroom and watching. So if you have a judge who is upset, easily angered, easily irritated, it doesn't reflect well in the system. So I'm really proud of that.
Candidate Bundy.
Like candidate Colliver, I'm also pleased with and proud of my results on professionalism and temperament. And I think that is my strongest attribute. As a criminal defense lawyer, you learn to be calm within a storm because the cases are typically compromised, and you get hit with a lot of bad information. You have to deliver negative news all the time, and you must do it respectfully and you must do it calmly. There's no time for panic when you're trying, say, a homicide case, for example. And I think I've comported myself well over the course of my career as a trial lawyer by treating the client as human beings. Because a lot of times I hear from the other side, and these folks remain nameless, but some prosecutors will refer to their witnesses as taxpayers, implying that my client is not. And I'm loath to point out that everyone pays taxes. And so one thing I think I want to demonstrate from the bench is an empathy and a sensitivity to the notion that what you see from a person in court, that's not the sum total of their lives. They are a whole being. They have a lot more to offer. Even when I spend months or even years with clients, I don't get to know them fully. That would reflect the whole experience of their lived experience. And so I hope to bring that insight and that empathy to the bench.
Thank you. So, I do this from year to year, and occasionally someone will say, I don't have any bias. Okay, and I'm gonna tell you all, don't say that, please, because we all do, including me. So since we've already settled that, okay. So as a judge, how will you deal with your biases? Candidate Collier.
Frankly, I think the first way to deal with bias is, and I laughed when you said that, but I think it's absolutely true. There is that, and I forget the name of it, but there's that Harvard Law School has a online quiz about basically subconscious or unconscious bias. And I did that quiz and I was kind of floored by it because I don't actively think that I do have a bias, but of course we all do. I think the key component, quite frankly, is to recognize that it exists. If you pretend like it's not happening, if you pretend that, oh, well, that couldn't be me, that couldn't apply to me, you're missing the whole point of trying to grow and learn from people who have different backgrounds than you do. So I think, frankly, the first step is awareness that it exists. And to critically think about where these thoughts come from. You know, there are definitely times in my life where I catch myself thinking something. And I kind of check myself and go, okay, where did that come from? Why do I think that way? How can I change that kind of automatic thinking that I have? So, thank you.
Judge Berkowitz.
Sure. What people are entitled to is equal justice under the law. Everyone who comes to court, for whatever reason, whether the defendant, the victim, the witnesses, jurors, the attorneys, the people who work in the courthouse, equal justice under the law. Municipal court is, as I said before, is a fascinating place because there's so much volume, more than 100,000 cases filed in our court every year. And you just never know what you're going to get. And so that lends itself, I think, to what you're getting at, which is you have to practice, you have to work at, and I think it's very instructive when you preside or when you try cases in municipal court. You learn very, very quickly not to get ahead of yourself. Soon as the moment that you think you know what you're about to hear, the moment you think you know what to expect, you can guarantee there's a curveball coming. You don't know the people in front of you. You don't know their background, their story. They are every individual that comes to court of whatever persuasion, whatever party, they are unique individuals. The cases are unique, the challenges are unique. And when you focus on the facts and the evidence that's presented and the law that applies to that case, you've reached the right result. That's what I've worked at for 10 years. And it's something that you have to continually work at to make sure you don't fall into the trap of reaching conclusions and prejudging a case. Well, I know this is where it's going to go. I know this case is going to end up getting ignored by a grand jury. I know this case is going to end up in a violation. I know this case is going to end up in an acquittal. I know this person's not going to show up. You've got to discipline yourself you don't know that. You don't know how things are going to turn out. You don't know the people involved. Focus on the job, which is applying the law to the facts and evidence at issue in that case, in each case.
Thank you. Candidate Stefano.
Thank you. I completely agree with what candidate Culliver has said, as well as what Judge Berkowitz was saying, and the benefit of, by the time it gets to the judge, right, there's a need to take some time. Up until that point, and I've, as a practitioner, I've seen, body camera and things like that, where, the officer's making those decisions and they have to make those decisions very quickly. And they say, okay, you'll see the judge and they'll take it up in court. And that is the appropriate place to take up whatever issues or defenses or other things, other matters or motions to be heard. So I think checking bias, well, obviously it exists. Checking it by taking the time to, again, look at the case for what it is, look at the individual, being able to take that time. The issue, I think, in municipal court is, okay, yeah, well, how do you have time to take all that time, right? I think a lot of it can be helped by, again, increasing the level of efficiency. So the cases that need that particularized time, the cases that need the more kind of complicated, intricate cases, those are taken, you have more time to be able to deal with those cases versus, certain traffic cases or things like that. So how are we managing the time that we do have in municipal court, as well as how are we not spending the time having to figure out and look for things that we could have if we had a, modern case management system where we could have, data at our fingertips. How are we utilizing that in order to, again, give us more time in order to make sound decisions based on those facts. So again, I'm a big advocate for efficiency and for creating more technology in order to have those tools for judges to use in order to have more time with cases.
Candidate Mundy?
Yeah, I think I was on the panel when I heard a candidate last cycle, say they didn't have bias, and I think we all have it. We have bias in favor of our families, bias in favor of our friends, in favor of our work. And I think the way to avoid bias is to be intentional about avoiding. I know I have it, but I would take the steps to minimize it, because I don't think that you ever get away from it totally, but you can do the best you can to minimize bias. Because of our backgrounds, we're biased in favor of certain things. I noticed it when I was a young lawyer, and the judge was a former prosecutor, and they only prosecuted cases, and they may be unaware of their bias in favor of the state, but you can see it when you're an outsider. I would likewise have to be aware of my bias in favor of the accused and work against it so that we're fair to everyone. We're not favoring one side or the other. But bias is something that definitely exists, and the way to avoid it, the way to minimize it, because I don't think you ever totally get away from it, the way to mitigate it is to be intentional about working against bias.
Thank you. So we've got a question from the League of Women Voters. And as I stated, it's been a long time since I practiced in municipal court. So hopefully this question will mean something to the candidates. How do the candidates feel about potentially overruling the clerk of court on posting eviction records? I will go with candidate Mundy first.
You know what, I must say that I'm not really familiar with this issue of overruling the posting. I know about the controversy, but I was so steeped in my own work that I don't really fully understand what the issue was with posting the evictions. If I would likely say I would oppose posting evictions on the website simply because it's sort of like the scarlet letter, if you will. It's a way just to create barriers to people's success and getting housing and the like. So naturally, my natural inclination is to oppose the history of posting evictions on websites.
Judge Berkowitz?
Thank you. I am familiar with that issue. I dealt with it more than I ever intended to. And ultimately, it's been resolved. The Ohio Supreme Court ruled earlier this year unanimously that the blanket removal of tens of thousands of eviction records was not permitted under Ohio law and the Ohio Constitution. The Ohio Constitution requires or assumes that courtrooms are open to the public, and that includes court records. And what the Supreme Court said unanimously was that any removal of those records has to be case specific. It has to be on a case-by-case basis. It has to be based on the facts and the evidence in that particular case. That is a process that happens every day in Hamilton County Municipal Court. People file to have eviction records specifically removed from the internet or otherwise sealed from public view. Those hearings are held daily. They are granted daily, but they must be based on the specific facts of that individual case with an opportunity for an opposing party to object, make a record, to appeal. What the difficulty or the problem was with this issue in 2021, 2022 was that the blanket removal of tens of thousands of records provided no such opportunity for objection, no opportunity for appeal, no opportunity to challenge that decision. And so it was the Ohio Supreme Court ruled definitively on the issue. And I am proud of the way our court handled it, which was unanimously. 14 judges agreed ultimately with the approach that we took. We tried to resolve the issue. That was unsuccessful. And ultimately, the Supreme Court, every court that looked at the case, agreed that we handled it appropriately.
For my other two candidates, if you want to weigh in on that question, you can, but it sounds like to me that we might move on to another question. Oh, would you like to?
Just wait, I
Yeah.
just want to clarify some things about what removing from the website display means versus sealing the record. Those are two distinct legal actions. And while I do agree with Judge Berkowitz, the Supreme Court did rule that those records can only be made and those removal of those records from the clerk's website could only be made by a judicial person, a magistrate, a judge. Those are routinely done by magistrates in municipal court. There's a local rule, Rule 9.16, that allows specifically for that. The initial removal came from other courts that have done the same thing in Franklin County, Cuyahoga County, and now more recently Montgomery County. But again, the Supreme Court ruled, and that I do want to make clear, as attorneys, we should make clear there is a distinction between being available for public display on the website and removing that public display, because that is still a public record that can be accessed. But a sealing is different, because a sealing is something that the general public could not access. So I just want to make that clear as well.
I don't think I have anything to add.
Good. Okay, well, here's a question for you then. So between all these Netflix and movies with, that have these legal themes or something, or some novel that you read recently that had some legal theme, have you read anything or seen anything that makes you think, that's not bad, I could be a better lawyer? And would you share that? If you have, if you've not, you haven't, just move on.
So a movie or a book
Movie
or
or a
something
book.
in popular culture
There
that
you
would make me think.
Or
hey,
unpopular
but-
culture, depends,
But improve my legal skills.
or at least,
essentially.
or think about practicing.
That's a tough question off the top of my head, but here's how I will answer this. I don't know if anyone has ever seen My Cousin Vinny. I tend to think that, I'm trying to remember the name of the main character, but the lengths to which he went to represent his client, I really admired. I know that that's an older movie, but that is in a real sense how I strive to conduct my practice, which is to follow the rules, to apply the law, to make sure that I'm pointing out, no, this is the law, this is how it gets applied, to challenging, to making sure that my clients have due process. So I would say that that kind of accurately reflects how best I want to practice in my current practice.
Judge Berkowitz?
It's a great question. What came to mind, what always comes to mind in any discussion of movies, pop culture, The Wire. If you haven't watched The Wire, you should. It's probably 25 years or so that it first aired. It was an HBO series. I think it ended after 5 seasons. Very incredibly relevant, very compelling, it was great television. It was actually based off of a book where the writer, David Simon, was embedded with the Baltimore Homicide Unit for a year. And he wrote this book called A Year on the Killing Streets. This was the 90s epidemic of violence in Baltimore. And he wrote this book, and that became the inspiration for that series, The Wire. And it is still very, very much relevant. I think it's well worth the investment of time, entertaining and informative.
Candidate Stefano?
It's interesting that Judge Berkowitz mentions The Wire, because Professor Godsey, which I don't even know if he still teaches evidence here, but he taught me evidence here at the law school, and we would routinely watch clips from The Wire. That was one of my favorite classes that he taught. In terms of pop culture, it's not necessarily pop culture, but a lot of what I was able to do in law school, and one of the most important things I'm really proud of, is being a part of the Ohio Innocence Project. And frankly, those stories are wilder, crazier, more sad and then happy than any fiction that you will read or see on TV. Those stories, I think, are the most important stories, especially if for the law students in the room, is to understand how those folks got into those situations, in terms of, whatever it was, right? The DNA wasn't there, so they were able to provide, DNA evidence later. The different dynamics between the prosecutor and the defense attorney, whether the defense attorney was frankly competent to be a defense attorney. So frankly, reading those transcripts when I was in law school, again, it was illuminating, and I think those are very, very important stories to know and to learn from.
Candidate.
Well, I'm gonna get my nerd on, because I'm currently reading Justice Abandoned by Rachel Elise Barkow. And it is a sort of a treatise, and I read only nonfiction. I know that sounds boring, but it's a treatise on how the United States Supreme Court contributed to mass incarceration by choosing convenience over due process in 6 decisions related to pretrial detention, and whether or not proportionality applied to penalties that were penalties other than capital punishment. And so they chose making sure that the justice system would run smoothly versus rights of the accused and rights of the individual with regard to robust due process. And I'm a little over 100 pages in, but even practicing 31 years, I am reading a treatment of these cases that is educating me. Now, if you're a non-lawyer, you probably don't want to pick this one up. Or maybe you do, because it reads easily to me, but I don't know how that translates to someone who's not in the practice of law or is not in law school, but I do recommend it. Here's a plug for Rachel Elise Barkow's Justice Abandoned.
So to date, what is your candidate's final? What's your greatest legal accomplishment to date?
Currently in my work at the clerk's office, typically you think about one big case that you handled, or, a really good result you got for a client. And that has been, yes, those have been great. What I have been most proud of in my work at the clerk's office is the day-to-day of understanding of people just coming in, wandering in, not knowing how to navigate the process and creating frameworks and processes that make it easier for folks to do that. One of those things is the availability of being able to file domestic or file civil protection orders online. We've been working, again, it's a work in progress, but prior to that, a person would have to come in to our office physically, get the paperwork, fill out the paperwork, then get it filed, then have to come to court the very next day in order for their hearing around 7:30 in the morning. They have to wait outside until a sheriff's deputy will be able to go, get those folks and take them upstairs, and they, have to wait. We were able to create, again, a website to where, or a link to where people could get that first step done without having to come to court. It may seem little, it may seem minor, but that is for the people that are actually who are in need of protection and are seeking to have that protection from the courts. It's very, very important that we make sure that we remove those barriers for folks. I would love to be able to do this fully online and then have people to be able to come to their hearing. And that's what I want to work towards as a judge. But that is one of my the biggest accomplishments. I think that, again, as a clerk's office, it was a team effort, but one of the ones that I've been able to play a part in and also advocate for, and frankly, have a lot of, buy-in from the rest of the stakeholders, police officers. They're always asking me for the link because that's a resource for them to use to be able to, help out victims in a case. So I'm really proud of that.
And I'm gonna go to, I believe Judge Berkowitz.
The accomplishment in municipal court is consistency. It's day after day, case after case, delivering justice in a way that is fair, that's transparent, that's efficient. We are a high volume court. We have a lot of cases. And when you have a case, whether as a defendant, a victim, a witness, it is stressful. The people involved don't work at the courthouse. They're taking time out of their lives. They have a dispute in their lives. They have a challenge that they're dealing with. It is not something that people look forward to. It's often they are there not of their own choice, but because they have to, they're required to. So it's critically essential for me as a judge to resolve that case efficiently, fairly, and transparently so that they get their day in court, they understand what happened, it's not delayed unnecessarily. It's not taking up more time out of their lives than absolutely necessary. And so and that we provide the finality that they need to live their lives accordingly, whether it's the outcome they hoped for, the outcome that they didn't. They need to be able to move forward from all of our cases in a productive way, a way that informs their situation so that they can avoid that sort of problem in the future, or so that that problem is resolved, whatever the case may be. But that's really the accomplishment. I am excited and looking forward to, we are moving to some digital judgment entries by the end of this year, which is a long time coming. It's going to make the court more efficient. It's going to make the process of getting court records to the clerk's website more efficient. It's going to save a lot of manpower. It's going to save hours. And it's been a lot of work because there's a lot of moving parts, but I'm very excited about that as well.
Candidate Oliver.
I think it's really hard for me to narrow down what I would consider like my biggest legal accomplishment. I think I have won a fair number of cases. I've gotten a lot of great results from my clients. I think I've earned the respect of my peers and colleagues. Ooh, that's back. Start over. Well, I'm gonna continue on, so.
Good.
I feel like I have earned the respect of my peers and colleagues because I do work hard, I do my research, I review all the discovery, I do everything that needs to happen before I walk into the courtroom. But as the other candidates and Judge Berkowitz were talking, I thought about one particular case I had where it was a misdemeanor case. This was several years ago. I had a client, he ended up entering a plea to something. And I don't know if everyone is familiar with this, but after someone has entered a plea or been convicted of something, the attorney gets an opportunity to do what we call mitigation, which is to say kind of the good things about the person to lessen the sentence. And I had a lot to say about this particular man. I got to know him over a period of time and, you know, talked a lot to the judge about who this person was. And he got a fine. We walked out of the courtroom and he gave me a hug and he said, "Thank you for making me a human being." And I thought, even now, it almost makes me tear up thinking about the fact that I got to give this person meaning in front of a judge. So I think that was maybe one of my biggest accomplishments.
And Monday,
You know, I want to approach this question from a macro point of view because there have been a lot of great results over 31 years. But I don't want to focus on that because I think our most valuable commodity is time. And when I thought, looking back on my career, what I'm most proud of and the biggest accomplishment is saving all of my clients the aggregate amount of time that I've saved them, because I say to people a lot that the culpable client needs the best lawyer, right? And so when you're dealing with someone who has exposure, it is the deal that you work out that is going to provide the best benefit to them so that they don't, for example, spend decades in prison or the rest of their life, but you get something that's manageable for a young man. And as I look back over 31 years in practice as a criminal defense attorney, there have been a lot of citizens that I've been able to grant them time with my efforts in the courtroom and outside the courtroom, working on the cases. And frankly, most of what we do as trial lawyers, the smallest percentage of it, I would argue, is trial. Most of it's pre-trial, and then most of the cases are resolved through negotiated resolution plea. And so those are the results that I'm most proud of, is the time that I've saved my client over 3 decades.
so since I've not really probably asked you the question first, we'll go back to you. So it appears to me, I've known you for a long time, that you will win. Okay, unless something really goes wrong, that you're gonna get there. Bernie's made it, all right? So you're there, what do you wanna fix and why?
Well, and I'll tell you a quick story. Judge Bouchard, who's a future colleague and a colleague of Judge Berkowitz, told me, "Just stay alive, brother." But when I get there, what I'd like to do is, I don't know that I fix it, but I'd like to see if we can reduce pretrial detention for nonviolent offenses. And I'm sure the bench is doing that now, but I think it can always improve. And I'd also like to see if I can reduce recidivism by helping individuals who do find themselves convicted of criminal cases. Because what I've heard from judges and practitioners and what I've seen myself is that a lot of the same citizens will cycle in and out of municipal courts, the people's court. So they're back in. And so I'd like to see if I could help give them the tools to remove barriers to success so that they don't find themselves back in criminal court again. And I'll cite John Berlew again. Once told one of my clients, "You're serving a life sentence, 30 days at a time." And we were in municipal court, right? Because he had been back so many times. So those are the things I want to work on. Pretrial detention, reducing that where I can. Obviously, you can't on every case. And then reducing recidivism.
Kind of open.
Thank you. So like Bernie, I'm very interested in focusing on addressing the root causes of what's bringing people into the criminal justice system. A lot of the behavior, the criminal behavior that we see in municipal court is driven by substance abuse and mental health issues. And As many of you may know, the maximum sentence that someone can get in municipal court is 6 months. And so if we are taking a person out of a very marginalized situation, locking them up for 6 months, and then letting them back out into the same situation and not having addressed any of those issues that brought them into the system, I think we as a system have failed. I think we need to address substance abuse and mental health. There are a number of specialized dockets, mental health, recovery docket, there's a change court docket. There are several dockets in municipal court that we need to utilize more. There are a number of inpatient treatment programs. We need to focus on getting people the evidence-based treatment that they need so that they can get out of the system and stay out of the system. I think that is critically important because we're putting a little Band-Aid on a problem and we're not addressing it, we're not fixing it, we're just delaying it. The other thing I want to focus on is creating staggered court times. So if any of you have come to municipal court, what you know is you will come at 9 o'clock when all of the cases are set, which means police officers, defendants, victims, witnesses, attorneys, and it's kind of a cattle call. And again, there are 14 judges, so you kind of go in between rooms. But what happens is people end up sitting there for hours sometimes waiting for their case to be held. And what that means is we don't have police officers out on the streets doing their work or at home sleeping because they worked third shift. We have people who are missing work and not being able to be productive members of society. They have to get childcare. They have to do all of these things to get to court. So I want to create staggered for court times to minimize the amount of time that people are needlessly wasting in court. Thank you.
All right, Judge Berkowitz, this is kind of a odder question to you, obviously. So tell me when you got in there 10 years ago, and I would have said to you from this, what do you want to fix? Have you fixed it?
Well, I'm honored to serve in the municipal court. A couple of years ago, the Cleveland Plain Dealer did a front page story that was titled Hamilton County Municipal Court, a model of equal justice and efficiency. They sent reporters to Cincinnati for months. They spent time with the clerk's office, with pretrial services. They observed numerous court hearings. They compared us to comparably sized communities. They find that we resolve cases more efficiently with fewer judges. We are a model in Ohio, and I don't think that should be ignored. We have an obligation in municipal court to consider public safety when setting bonds and in imposing sentences. And, you talk about 10 years ago, and what I've thought about this a lot lately, because 10 years ago, there was not a dramatic difference in a lot of the judges and how they set bonds, for example. And some of that has changed over the last 5-6 years, where you have these dramatically different, divergent kind of perspectives on things like bond setting and sentencing, not just in our court, but in the Court of Common Pleas, and certainly not just in Hamilton County, but around the country. And we are blessed in this community to have many treatment providing organizations, many alternatives that are looking to help people with substance abuse problems, mental health problems. There's a tremendous need. But it is also critically important that judges have clear eyes about what is a danger to the public, who is a danger to the public, and what we can do to prevent, to impose consequences that discourage dangerous criminal antisocial behavior, and what we can do to deliver justice to the victims of crime. They're out there. We have to consider these things by law, but it's up to us to do it so that people do not feel that so that people don't lose confidence in their justice system, that we aren't a dysfunctional justice system. We have to be fair, and we have to deliver that equal justice to all, whether it's victims, defendants, witnesses, everyone involved.
Yeah, it's fun.
Frankly, it's the most important thing, and the way to fix some of the issues happening in municipal court is, I'm gonna say it, technology. We are operating currently on a case management system from 1997. Again, I don't know where some of you guys were in 1997. I'm not.
I was in the
as-
court. So,
Okay.
yeah.
There you go. So it's the same.
Yeah.
It's not just to say and it's not just technology for the sake of having something new, improved, fancy. The idea is it's supposed to be a tool. And the idea is things like, hey, an officer needs to get in touch with the judge in order to get a search warrant approved. There's electronic ways to do that. Hey, this arrest warrant that the clerk's office just determined probable cause on, well, that's not gonna get into the system for about 4 hours because the paper needs to get delivered to the correct place in order to get put into the system. That's not, again, muni court, it's high volume, it's quick. We need to be having, we need to have real-time data, we need to have real-time processes so that we can get real-time solutions, and the court can provide those time solutions with that information. Another thing I would advocate for, and that I'm, hoping to try to fix, and again, I've tried to do it from the clerk's perspective, but I think gives me a unique perspective as a judge, would be understanding all those dynamics, because that's a difficult thing to do. It's not as snapping your finger buying something off the shelf. There's obviously government procurement things to take in consideration. There's obviously the different courts that have to sign off on these things. There's the consideration of the different stakeholders. But the more we can get to electronic filing for both attorneys as well as law enforcement, and so the workflows are in place to where, again, if a legal aid attorney files a poverty affidavit, and that poverty affidavit needs to get approved, that can be done within minutes if we have the right technology in place. And again, that only improves us and makes us better, which makes, again, the community better as a whole.
All right, I think we got 1 or 2 more questions. Everyone's good with that. So I guess at some point, I think it's important for the electorate to know, really who you are. And to me, the best way to kind of show people who you are is, why don't you share with us what you do when you're not lawyering some community outreach, or how do you help the community? I'm gonna start with candidate Stefan.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thank you for that question. I had the distinct pleasure of being a part of the call program with the Cincinnati Bar Association. It's a leadership program for lawyers, and that it was really important to me to do that program. Through that program, we were able to start a social media literacy program that we go into the different schools, and we actually went into 2020, so the Justice Center for Juveniles, and presented this. And it's just a group of lawyers that go in and talk to kids about the media that they're consuming, and how that can be misleading, or how to look into those, and look at it with a critical eye. So that's something that I've been really, really proud of. When I'm not doing that, I enjoy spending time with my 2 nieces and nephew who live down the street from me, and going to all their sporting events and all of their activities. And so that's what I like to do when I'm not, again, at the clerk's office or doing other work.
All right, Judge Berkowitz.
Since 2012, I have served as a member of the Hamilton County Law Library Resource Board. I am a total nerd for the law library. Dates back to 1834, I think, was when the institution was founded. A couple of years ago, we celebrated the centennial of the opening of the Hamilton County Courthouse. I could go on for hours on this topic, but when it opened in 1919, the Hamilton County Courthouse was the largest, most expensive building in the city. It's just a fascinating institution. The library was considered the crown jewel of the entire building. It's filled with marble and stained glass and historical artifacts. It's kind of like that scene in Indiana Jones, X marks the spot in the library. it's a really wonderful place. So I'm very proud of that institution. I think we're very fortunate to have it. And unfortunately, a lot of lawyers even have no idea that it's there and accessible every day. Personally, I am married to my wife, Beth. We celebrated our 15-year anniversary this year. We have 3 beautiful children. I was born and raised here in Cincinnati, and it's still wild to me to be now the father of 3 and raising my own children here. And I am internally grateful for their love and support. I'm active in church with them, and I try to coach and be involved as much as I can in their lives, which is really a privilege.
Kennedy Clay.
Thank you. So I am the mother of a 17-year-old daughter. She is a senior at Walnut Hills this year, Walnut Hills High School. So I try to spend as much time with her as I possibly can, although campaigning right now has been taking a little bit of that time away from her. I also do a lot of work in terms of speaking to different groups. I've gone to like the Telbert House, and just different organizations, talking to people in terms of a know your rights situation. I like to make sure people are aware of resources in the community. And again, I mean, back to, I'm a nerd for the legal profession, quite frankly, and making sure that people understand what their rights are and treating them with dignity and compassion. So even after I finish the legal representation of my clients, a lot of times I'll continue to work with them outside of the normal work hours to make sure that they have resources for housing, that they have resources for mental health treatments, that, you know, here's how you go ahead and get your social security card, those types of things. So I do spend a lot of time doing that. I also have my own law practice, so that takes up a lot of time. But yeah, everything I do, I kind of feel like focuses on the law.
Kennedy Monday.
You know, with regard to community outreach, for a number of years, I was involved with the Queen City Youth Development Program, helping mentor young men in that program. I've since left the program, but my good friend Lizzie Davis, he's the one who started it, and he still works with it. Also, I work with the Tenant Information Project, helping you know, marginalized tenants know their rights, landlord tenant disputes. With regard to what I do in my free time is I'm married for 28 years to the love of my life, Stephanie, and she's my biggest supporter. I want to take this opportunity, since we're on a live feed, to thank Stephanie for all of her support and making me a better person. And I'm kind of pragmatic, progressive, and I've had an opportunity over the years to even mentor some former clients after their experience in the criminal justice system, to see if I couldn't help them get on the straight and narrow and guide them to a better path. So that's essentially, we like to go out and eat, we like to go to shows, you know, the Shakespeare Theater, concerts and the like. I'll do another plug. I'm going to see Chris Stone, Kingfish Ingram tomorrow at the Taft. If anybody's interested, you should check this kid out. He's a tremendous guitar player.
I was gonna say, I need to Google that because I don't know who he is. Yeah, or she, or him, or it, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, I think we'll give each other 1 minute to close up. At least we have 1 minute to close up. So, since, why don't you continue?
I'd like to close by saying that the People's Court, which is municipal court is known as, is one of the courts that could contribute to one of the problems we have in America. And this is, I love America, but we're an incarceration nation. We have 5% of the world's population, with 25% of the incarcerated population. Many of those people that are incarcerated are doing pretrial detention. Now, I know that, like Judge Berkowitz says, you have to pay attention to public safety. If someone's in danger, no one's suggesting that they shouldn't be dealt with accordingly, according to the facts of the law, and set up their bond. But where possible, we should not be jailing people, especially pretrial property offenses and the like, things that don't contemplate violence or didn't intend violence and don't involve violence. And so I'd like to take an opportunity to pledge that I'm going to do whatever I can once I take the bench to, again, reduce recidivism and also to decrease the number of people that are serving pretrial detention, right? Because the country was founded on dissent. And I think that individual rights are very important and robust process is something that we should be delivering.
Kenneth Palmer.
Thank you. So I want to close by saying that this is my first time running for office. I've never done this before. And there's been a couple times that I've been introduced as a politician. I'm like, no. I'm not a politician. I am a person. Right now I'm an attorney who wants to become a judge. And the reason I want to become a judge is because I want to make our community better. I care about our community. I care about the people in our community. And frankly, I care about the rule of law. I think it is so important that we make sure we are preserving due process, that we are treating every person equally with dignity and with humanity that walks into a courtroom. Coming from this criminal defense background, I think there's certainly arguably room for people to go, oh, she's going to be soft on crime. That's not at all it. I don't want crime. I don't like crime. I hate crime, just like the rest of my community. But I also want to focus on methods that are going to stop crime and make people's lives better. So I'm asking for your vote if you are listening to this, and thank you all very much for coming tonight.
Judge Berkowitz.
Thank you. I'll close with a story. This happened about a year ago. It was an ordinary docket, about 30 or 40 cases, so it took quite a while. And at the end of the docket, there was a young woman who sat through the entire docket. And so we finished all these cases, and I said, can I help you? Are you here for a case? I kind of thought maybe she was here, maybe she was in the wrong courtroom, maybe she was on the wrong date, something like that. Can I help you? And she said to me, you don't remember me, do you? And I did not. I did not remember her. And she said, I had a case, and to my defense, this was, she said she had had a case something like 6-7 years earlier. And she said, you put me in jail. You gave me every day in jail that you could. I hated you for it. You saved my life. I got sober. I've been sober ever since. I now work for a treatment provider. And while I was sitting here watching your docket, I convinced 3 people who I don't know to come to treatment tomorrow. You could have knocked me over. It was a very overwhelming moment. It demonstrates the impact that we can have. The idea that nothing good happens in jail is just not correct. There's tremendous work in the jail. We can, when we do our jobs appropriately, when we set bonds and fashion sentences appropriately, we have the capacity to disrupt cycles of violence, cycles of addiction, cycles of abuse. And this was a wonderful example. You certainly don't do the job for thank yous. That's not what it's about. But this was a special moment, and it was certainly a very encouraging message that she delivered that day.
Kenneth Stefano.
Thank you all so much for being here, for viewing this. I am also a first-time candidate. I am a daughter and granddaughter of immigrants. Both sides of my family immigrated here to the United States, and they did so to live out the American dream. What they would tell you is they're very proud of the fact that I am here today, but I want to continue that. And I do believe a judge, even though, you may sit up on top of, 3 steps, on top of look over everyone, but what you're electing is you're electing a public servant. And I will be a public servant and always keep in mind where I came from, and always keep in mind why my family came here, to participate in the American dream, to have that afforded to people, again, to respect the rule of law, the Constitution, the very bedrock of what makes America, in terms of having the justice system we have, making sure that we are upholding all of those ideals that we are making ideals that they have set out for us. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so as we close, on behalf of the Cincinnati Bar Association, we'd like to thank first off, all the candidates for coming and for your, I think, your candid and heartfelt answers. We appreciate that. We'd like to thank the UC Law School, but really the law students who are making sure that we got to the right places. We appreciate that. Also, we'd like to thank the NAACP and the Urban League, as well as we'd like to thank the Black Lawyers Association of Cincinnati for some of their questions, as well as the League of Women Voters. So everybody go vote. That's what this is all about. Hopefully you got educational experience from it. And if you're interested in is this poll available, Lisa? If you're interested in the judicial candidate poll, just contact the Cincinnati Bar Association.
On the website.
It's on the website. All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.